Tired of complicated crochet patterns that leave you tangled in yarn? This Wandering Granny Shawl uses simple repeats and clear instructions so you can relax and crochet with confidence. Hi, it's Krista at the Secret Yarnery. Today we are making this gorgeous Wandering Granny Crochet Shawl. It's called Wandering because we are going up and down, and you're always going to know what to do, so your mind can also go on a little wander. It also finishes with this gorgeous border just on the two narrow ends, just for some extra splash and pizzazz. But you're welcome to make it without the border, just leaving this nice straight edge automatically part of the pattern. You'll need 4 cakes. This is Cakes Splash from Ice Yarns. It is 140 grams and 225 meters per cake, and I used 4 of these for my wrap. Plus, I used a little bit of this white for our border. You could use any size 4 worsted weight acrylic for yours. It doesn't have to be the same yarn as I am. The finished size of my shawl is 58 inches long by 22 inches wide, and that is without the border. The border adds 7 inches on each side, so the finished size with the border is 72 inches long by the same 22 inches wide. You can make yours a different size just by using any multiple of 10, but I'll be sharing more of that when we get started. You will also need stitch markers just for your starting chain to help you out. For the width of my shawl, I'm about 5'9", and I'm using 22 stitch markers, and I am using a 7mm crochet hook, and you'll also need a needle for sewing in your ends. Here are the timestamps. You can jump back into where you left off, and let's get started. So there are 2 ways you can start your shawl, either by using a larger crochet hook. So you could use an 8mm for your chain and then working into it, or you can just start with your 7mm hook and you can do chainless foundation. Chainless foundation is a really good way to not have to fuss about working into your chain. So give it a try. I'm just going to show you how to do it. And you want to do sets of 10. But if you're doing chainless foundation, we're just going to go ahead and make a whole bunch of chainless foundation, and then I'll show you how to pop in your stitch markers. So I'm just going to start by making a slip knot, just like we were getting going with regular crochet, and slide that onto your hook. And we're going to chain 2. So we're going to chain 1, and we're going to chain 2. Now we're going to work into this very first stitch right here. So just pop your hook in. Just 1 strand on your hook is fine. Bring your yarn back and pull your hook up a little bit. I kind of pull my hook so it's facing up, and then chain 1. So there's our chain 1, and we're going to make our single crochet next. But I'm just going to hold this open right here, that little spot, with my thumb. I'm just going to poke my thumb and just hold that spot open and do my single crochet. So wrap and take off 2 loops. And I'm going to push my hook in right where my thumb was holding those stitches. So there's 2 loops on my hook. Bring your yarn through and just pinch your work and pull your hook up to that 12 o'clock position on a clock and chain 1. So we have 3 strands under our hook. I'm going to separate them. I want 2 underneath my thumb and 1 on top. So 1 and 2 is going to go below my thumb, and my thumbnail is going to go right in this spot, just to separate that 1 strand. And now wrap and do your single crochet. So take off 2 loops. Now I'm just going to push my hook right where my thumb is, and that gets those perfect 2 loops on your hook. Bring your yarn back through. Grab your work, just pinch it with your thumb and fingers, and pull your hook up to 12 o'clock, and chain 1. Now to separate that 1 loop with your thumb, with your thumbnail, and do your single crochet. So chain 1. Put your hook back down where your thumb was. See how that edge is like so pretty right now? And bring your yarn back through. Pinch your work and pull your hook up to 12 o'clock. Wrap your yarn and chain 1. Separate that one strand with your thumb and make 1 single crochet. Now, some people find it easier without using your thumb to separate that one stitch, so try either way, whichever is more comfortable for you. Just keep in mind that we are doing our chain first, and we want to make that loop bigger by putting our hook upright or to 12 o'clock. So doing your chain, pinching it if it's comfortable for you, and doing a single crochet. 2 strands on your hook, yarn back through, chain 1, pinch, single crochet. Slide your hook in, bring your yarn back, hook up to 12 o'clock, chain 1, pinch, and do your single crochet. You can just keep doing that while you watch TV or hanging out. The trick is making your hook go all the way up after you have slid those 2 strands on your hook. You want to give it a nice pull. You don't want a tight chain, so it'll be all curled up. You want it to stretch evenly on both sides. And this is a really good technique for wearables because you don't have a really tight chain. We don't want a tight chain. We want it to be relaxed and easy. So just sliding those 2 loops on your hook. If you don't want to pinch, you could also roll your work to the side. Let me just do one more and I'll show you. You can just turn your work and you can see those 2 strands where you're going to want to put your hook in next. You could do it that way as well. And then just make sure you pull that loop up so that it is bigger. See how much bigger it is than the other? That really helps. So pause the video and do a whole bunch of chainless single crochets. If it is frustrating for you, you can go ahead and chain. Just use a slightly larger hook for your chain, and you're going to want to chain 220. If you'd like to follow along with a written pattern, all of my patterns are available on my website, secretyarnery.com, and all of my patterns are written in plain English, just like I was sitting there right beside you. Yours is going to be a lot longer than mine, but I'm going to show you what to do with your stitch markers. So there is the bottom of our chain, because that's where our slip knot is. So this is the top of our chain, and you can see our very first stitch is right here. With the chainless foundation, this is stitch number 1 right there. So we're just going to count to 10. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 right there. So pop in a stitch marker. And 10 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right there. And now you want to keep working along, putting a stitch marker every 10 stitches until you've used up all 22 stitch markers. If this part is frustrating for you and you just want to do a chain, go ahead and grab an 8mm hook and chain 221. When you have chained your 221, make 1 single crochet into the second stitch and then work all the way back down along your row. So now, no matter how you started, you are going to have 220 single crochets, and we are ready to start the shawl, the fun stitches. To start row 1, chain 2, 1 and 2, and turn your work. You can remove these stitch markers whenever you want, if they're in your way. Into this very first stitch, make 1 double crochet. Now skip 3 stitches, so 1, 2, 3, and into the 4th, we're going to do a hill. That is 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets, all into the same stitch. So there's our 2 double crochets, our chain 2. We need 2 more double crochets into that same stitch for our hill, just like that. Now we're going to skip 3 stitches again, 1, 2, 3, and starting in the 4th, we're going to do 1 double crochet into each. So 1, 2, and 3. Now we're going to skip 3 stitches again, 1, 2, 3, and into the 4th, we're going to make a hill. So that is 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets all into the same stitch. Just like that. So we're making hills and valleys all the way along our row. So skipping 3 again, 1, 2, 3, and starting in the 4th, we're going to make 1 double crochet into 3 stitches. So there's 1, 2, and 3. Just like that. Now we're going to skip 3 stitches again, 1, 2, 3, and make a hill into the 4th. We're going to do this all the way along, just making a hill and then doing our 3 double crochets for our valley. So hills, 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets, all into the same stitch. And then we're going to jump over and do a valley. So we're always jumping 3. 1, 2, 3, starting in the 4th, 1 double crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. There's 2 and 3. So you can pause the video and keep working along, skipping 3 and doing a hill, skipping 3 and doing a set of 3, all the way along. I'll meet you when you get to the end of your row right over there. At the end of your row, you're going to do the same thing. So we're going to be skipping 3, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to make 1 double crochet into each of the last 2 stitches. So now we are ready to start the repeat. To start the repeat, chain 2, 1 and 2, and this is when the pattern really gets nice and quick and easy. Turn your work into this very first stitch right where our chain is, right there. We're going to make 1 double crochet. And into the center of our hill, we're going to do a hill. Now let me just show you what hills and valleys look like, just laying it flat. Of course, you can take out those stitch markers at any time. Let me just pop them out for you. So this is what your stitches look like. There are hills and valleys. So we're just going to go wandering up the hills and down the valleys all the way along our row. So we're going to jump straight over into our very first hill, just into the center of that hill right there, and we're going to make a hill. And hills are always 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets into the very center space of the hill below. So hills get hills no matter what. So if you see a hill, you know that that hill is getting another hill. Then you'll see your set of 3, and your set of 3 get a set of 3. So valleys get valleys, hills get hills. So into each of those double crochets down below, 1 double crochet into each. There's 2, here is my 3. So right into the center space of that hill, we're going to do a hill. So 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets. There's 2, chaining 2, and 2 more double crochets. If I'm going too fast or too slow, you can just hit that gear on the video right there and slow me down or speed me up. And now into our valley, each of these stitches gets 1 double crochet. So 3 double crochets for our valley. Oops. There's 2, and 3. And into the center of our next hill, we're going to do a hill. So that's all we're doing for this pattern. All the way along, valleys get 3 double crochets, and hills get a hill, which is 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets all the way along your work. So you can pause the video and keep working along, and I will meet you when you get to the end of your row right over here. At the end of your row, we want to be working into the top of our chain. So not into our double crochet, not here. We want to work into our chain, and we want 2 strands of that chain on the top of your hook, like that. So you can pop your hook in, and we're going to end with 2 double crochets into this top of the chain. There, just like that. So you can repeat that row over and over until your shawl is the height you want it to be. And you want to end with an odd number of these shell rows, or the wandering rows, an odd number of rows. So for mine, I ended on 30, but I should have ended on 31 or 29. So for you, end on 29 or 31 or whatever number you get to, but just have it as an odd number of these shell rows. So not counting how we started, not counting our single crochets, just counting our hills, how many hills we've made. You want to have an odd number of hills. So pause the video, keep working along, and I'll see you when your shawl is the height you want it to be. To join a new cake, you want to join the same color yarn. You can check in the center of your balls or your cakes if you have the same color in the middle. I do not. I need to join with green. So you can decide whichever cake you want to use and kind of dismantle it a bit. So I'm going to pop the outside off, and I'm going to get right where that color starts, or estimating. I've used a bit of that green, not that much. Just a little bit of it. So I might leave a little bit of it matching onto the end of this purple, or I might just take it all out. It's working to take out all the purple, so that's what I'm going to do. There we go. So I have a center purple, and I have where the green is, and I'm just going to cut it. Like that. I can keep this to use the next time I finish up the navy blue. I can just join, there's navy blue in the center, so we can join that later. And I can join the green from here right now. So it doesn't matter where you are, but that's how you can sort of color control your cakes. Not so that you're joining a new color at the end of every row, but just so that you are continuing that color, and wherever it finishes is all right. I think most of our color changes are all kind of mixed up. There's one here, and then the next one is here. There's one there. It's all over the place, which is fine, but I do want to join a new cake with the same color. If you are using solid colors, then you don't have to worry about this. Just skip ahead and keep going with the pattern. But I'm just going to join with a magic knot. I will link a video in the cards of how to do a magic knot. After you have joined your yarn, just slide those 2 tails together. Shrink it up. If it's going to break, this is a great time, so pull as much as you can. Get the strongest person in your house to pull on this yarn. It's fine. If it breaks, do it again. Or sew in your tails, and then just cut that off. And then you can keep going with that yarn and use up the rest of this cake. At the end of this cake, you can go and look for that turquoise color, and you can do the same thing with this cake to just keep joining up. Whatever color's left over, I think I'm going to have a little bit of this dark blue, left over, I can probably maybe use that towards the end if I need it. So don't worry about it. Keep going, and I'll meet you when you've used up all of your yarn. When your wandering shawl is the width you want it to be, we're going to finish it off the same way we started. So we're going to do a nice row of crochet along the top. It'll also be along our neckline, so we want this to keep its shape. So I'll show you an awesome way of doing that. It is going to be 2 rows, but really, really fast and easy. For my size shawl, I've done 30 rows of the repeat, 31 including that first row of single crochet, but you could make yours any number of rows you like, skinnier or even wider. Into this very first stitch and into the second, we're going to do 1 half double crochet into each. So half double crochet and half double crochet, just like that. Chain 2, 1 and 2, and into this very first hill, the center of the hill, 1 single crochet. So that's the beginning. And now working all the way along, this is what we're going to do for this row. Chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. Single crochet into that center stitch, the center stitch of the valley. Chain 3 again, and single crochet into the center of the hill. So we're going to be doing this all the way along the edge of our shawl. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, single crochet into the center stitch of our valley, chain 3, single crochet into the top of our hill. You can pause the video and keep working along, just doing that simple repeat, chaining 3, single crocheting into the top of the hill, chaining 3, single crocheting into that center stitch of our valley. All the way along, I'll meet you when you get all the way over to the end of your row, this very last hill. So I've finished that chain. You can see how mine is. It's all kind of tight and wobbled now. Don't worry about it. We need that. We need that reduced number of stitches so that our neckline, or what we're putting around our necks, doesn't stretch out and lose its shape over time. So this smaller or tighter chain is going to help us. We need it. So don't worry if yours looks all weird. Mine does too. We are ready to just finish up this row. So I've made my last single crochet into the center of my hill. I'm going to chain 2, and I'm going to make 1 half double crochet into the last double crochet and also into the top of our chain. So wrapping your yarn, 1 half double crochet into the stitch and 1 half double crochet into the chain. So that finishes our chain row. Now we're ready to do the last row of our shawl. To do that, another chain 1, a loose chain 1. If you are a tight chainer, you can go ahead and chain 2. Turn your work. And now into this stitch right here, we're going to do 2 half double crochets. So just into that stitch, 2 half double crochets to start. Just like that. And now into our chain, we want 2 strands on the top of your hook. You can work into the space if you prefer. 1 half double crochet into 2 chains. So 2 half double crochets into that space. If you work into the chain, it ends up just looking a little tidier and matching the starting row a little bit better. But if it is hard for you to work into that chain, just go ahead and work into the space. Into the stitch, 1 half double crochet. So now we're ready to do the repeat. 3 half double crochets into the chain and a half double crochet into each stitch all the way along. Just try to get 2 strands of the chain on your hook. That first one, you have to push it in a little bit. The next 2 are easy. So you need 3 half double crochets into each space and 1 into the stitch. So you can pause the video, keep working along. 1 half double crochet into each stitch and 3 half double crochets into each of those chain spaces all the way along. I'll meet you when you get all the way to the end of your row, right over here. At the end of your row, just keep making those half doubles. We want to end just nicely here. We also want to work into that chain, just like we have been doing. So half double into that last chain, and there is the end of our shawl. Chain one to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail just to sew back in with a needle. Pull your hook up and your yarn through, snug that down to secure, and now we are ready to start the border. Now we're ready to start the border. So just grab a bunch of stitch markers. We are just going to space out where we're working in. So when we're working along, you know where you're going to go into. So we're going to start right at that very first stitch, right at the edge, because that's where we're going to start, and right after that single crochet. So these are quite close together at the beginning. Now we're going to skip a row and work into the second. So you can just pop a stitch marker into the second row, like that. So we skipped this stitch here in the center, or this little connection. If you look at the edge of your work, you can just poke your fingers in and see where these spaces are. I'm just counting these connections as our rows. So I'm going to skip a connection and work in to the next. And just pop a stitch marker into every second connection all the way along. So I'm skipping this guy. I'm going to work in here. Just like that. If you're an experienced crocheter, you can skip this step. And just pause the video, keep working along, and I will see you when you reach the end of your row, right over here. So I have my stitch markers all placed in the edge. I used 19 of them. We are ready to attach our yarn and start working along the edge, the skinny edge of our shawl. So just pop your hook in to that very last stitch we made, or the corner stitch if you're working on the other end. We're going to have to do this on both ends. So just into that corner stitch, pop a loop of yarn onto your hook. Bring it through, slip stitch with both strands to join, and drop your tail. Chain 2, and single crochet into that stitch right after our row of single crochets. So right into that stitch, or into that space along the edge, 1 single crochet. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and single crochet where we have our stitch marker. So we're skipping a connection, or we're skipping a row and making 1 single crochet into the side of the second. Chaining 3, 1 single crochet into where we have our stitch marker. So skipping a row and into the second row, just at that side, 1 single crochet. Chaining 3. We're going to do this all the way along. So skipping a row and into the second, or that second connection, 1 single crochet. You can pop those stitch markers out if they're annoying you. Chaining 3, skipping a row and 1 single crochet into the second, all the way down along the edge of our shawl. Don't worry if it is curling up and being weird. We do want it to be a little bit snug. It's going to help keep our shawl in line. So chaining 3 and making 1 single crochet into that second connection along the edge of our shawl, or skipping a row and 1 single crochet into the second row, all the way along the edge of our shawl. I'll meet you when you get over here right to the edge. Here is a little tip. If you ended up with an even number of wandering rows, you need to have an odd number of stitch markers. So even if your rows are a little bit off, just go ahead and pop in an extra stitch marker So here I'm just going to put an extra stitch or an extra single crochet right into that stitch. So I'm going to do the same thing. It's kind of like a fudge. So I'm doing my chain 3. I'm just not going to skip a row. I'm going to go right into that next row. Just into that stitch that joins along the side and just do our regular. So I'm still did a chain 3 and I went into that next row, and now I can keep up with the pattern for the rest of the shawl. But you're just going to have to put in a little fudge. So that's what it looks like right now. When we work into the rest of our border, no one's really going to tell. So at the end of our row or end of our edge, chaining 2 and 1 single crochet into that stitch or into that chain. So that is how we're going to start our border, just working into the edge of our shawl. Now we're ready to start the fun bit. Chain 2, 1 and 2, and turn your work. You can do a chain 3 if you crochet tightly or if you chain tightly. And into this very first stitch, 1 double crochet, chain 1, 1 single crochet into that next stitch. So we're just skipping over that chain completely and working into the single crochet. Chain 1, and into the next single crochet, we're going to do a hill. So 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets. Just like we were doing for our pattern. So there's 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets. Chain 1, and single crochet into the single crochet. Chain 1, and a hill into that next stitch. So 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets, all into the same stitch. So we're just building hills and valleys all along this edge of our shawl, like that. Chain 1 and single crochet to make your valley. So single crochet into the stitch. And we're just going to do this all the way along the edge of our shawl. So chain 1 and make a hill into the next stitch. Chain 1 and single crochet into the next stitch and chain 1. We're just going to keep going like this all the way up and down our shawl, and you can see how it evens out. If you had to make a correction like I did, I had to add a little row in there. You can see it's going to even out. Don't worry about it. It's going to be great. So now pause the video and keep working back along the edge of your shawl, making a hill, 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets. And a valley, which is chain 1, single crochet, and chain 1, all the way along the edge of your shawl, and I'll meet you when you get to the end of your row right over here. So at the end of your row, we have our hill and we have a single crochet and then where we started. So we're going to do our valley. So chain 1, single crochet into the stitch, and chain 1. And then into that beginning stitch or our join, we're going to make 2 double crochets, but we're not going to finish the last one. So we're going to make 1 double crochet, then we're going to start our second double crochet all into that same stitch. We're going to leave those last 2 loops on our hook because for me, I'm going to be changing colors. If you are using the cake and you don't have to change colors, finish off this stitch. So if you are changing colors, put a new loop of yarn on your hook and just finish off that double crochet with your new yarn. Drop your tail just holding it along the edge of your work so you have both of those tails pinned behind. Shrink it down and chain 2. 1 and 2. Again, if you are a tight chainer, you can chain 3 and turn your work. Into that very same stitch, 1 double crochet. So we're always going to start with what is 2 double crochets. Chain 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now we're going to make a hill into the next hill. So wrap your yarn, 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets, all into the center of that hill. Like that. Chain 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And into the center of our hill, we're going to do a hill. So 2 double crochet, chain 2, and 2 double crochet, all into the center of that hill. And then chain 4 to get to the next hill. So you can pause the video and just keep working along, doing a chain 4 and a hill into the hills all the way along, and I'll meet you when you get to the end of your row right over here. At the end of your row, we've done our last hill right into that hill, so hill into hill. We're going to do the same thing, so chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and into the top of our chain. So wrap your yarn and into the top of the chain, 2 double crochets to finish. There's 1 and 2. So that finishes the first row of this set. You'll see what I mean in a minute. So to start the next row, chain 2, 1 and 2, and turn your work. And into that very same stitch, right at the edge, 1 double crochet. So this counts as our first 2 double crochets of the row. Chain 2, and now we're going to single crochet around this chain. So just grab your yarn, bring it back, and make 1 single crochet just around that chain. Chain 2, and make a hill into the hill. So 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets, all into the center of our hill. So same hill we've always made. And into this middle section, chain 2, single crochet around, and chain 2. So there's my chain 2, single crochet just around that chain, and chain 2. So it ties down our hills into cute little diamonds or little eggs, and hill into the hill. So 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets, all into the center of our hill. And then our new valleys, which are chain 2, single crochet around, and chain 2. So there's the chain 2, here's the single crochet around, and chain 2. You can pause the video, keep working along, doing your hill, 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets, and your valley, chain 2, single crochet, chain 2, all the way along your row, and I'll meet you when you get to the end right over here. So at the end of our row, we're going to do a regular valley here, so chaining 2 and single crocheting around that last chain, and chaining 2. And now into the top of our chain, we're going to just finish with 2 double crochets. I'm going to be changing colors. So I'm going to do 1 double crochet, and I'm going to start the second, but I'm going to leave those last 2 loops on my hook. I'm going to cut my yarn and grab my white. Loop of white on my hook, bringing it through, dropping and holding both tails along the back of my work, and chaining 2. 1 and 2. So now I'm going to repeat this first purple row again. You can repeat these rows here, or these sets, until your border is the length you want it to be. You could make it shorter or longer, just repeating these sets of rows. So the chain 4 in between or the chain 2 with single crochet to make sets, as many sets as you'd like. When your border is the length you want it to be, I'll show you how to do this last row. To make your last row, chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we're just going to picot into that third chain. So just counting these loops. There's 1, 2, 3. We're just going to go into number 3 right there. And slip stitch, so that makes our picot. Just like that. Now we're going to turn our work into that very first stitch right there. We're going to wrap our yarn twice and make 1 treble crochet and 3 double crochets, all into the same stitch. There's 1, 2, and 3. So that is our new edge. And single crochet around the chain. And into our hill, we're going to be doing a new hill. So we're doing 3 double crochets. There's 1, 2, 3. 1 treble crochet, so wrap your yarn twice. 1 treble crochet. Now we're going to do a picot. So chain 3. And we're going to slip stitch into these 2 loops right there. So into the front loop and into that side. We're going to picot right there. So that just means slip stitch. So slide your hook in under those 2 strands and slip stitch like that. Wrap your yarn twice. Now we're going to do the opposite thing going down. So we're going to do 1 treble and 3 doubles. So there's our treble and 3 doubles, all into the same hill. Like that. And single crochet around the chain to pin it down. So that is our new hill for this pattern. 3 double crochets, treble crochet, picot, treble crochet, 3 double crochets. No chaining in between. So 3 double crochets into the next hill to start. 1 treble crochet, so that's wrapping your yarn twice. And a picot. Picot is a chain 3 and a slip stitch around those 2 or into those 2 strands of yarn right there. Just sliding your hook in under those 2 strands and picot. There. 1 treble crochet and 3 double crochets to finish. Just like that, and single crochet around the chain to pin that hill down. So you can pause the video and keep working along, doing a hill into each hill and a single crochet around the chain, all the way along this row. And each hill for this round, 3 double crochets, 1 treble, 1 picot, 1 treble, 3 double crochets, all the way along, and a single crochet around the chain to pin it down. So pause the video, keep working along. I'll meet you when you get to the end of your row right over here. At the end of your row, I've done that single crochet around the chain. We're ready to work into the top of our chain. So just make sure you get those 2 loops of the chain on the top of your hook. And we are going to do 3 double crochets into the top of that chain. So 3 double crochets. 1 treble crochet, picot, so that is a chain 3, and we just slip stitch around those 2 strands or into those 2 strands. Chain 3, and we're going to slip stitch right back down into the beginning, right where all those stitches came from. So 1 slip stitch and a chain 1 to secure your yarn. That gives us a half shell for the edge of our shawl. Cut your yarn. Oops, my hook fell out. Cut your yarn, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. Snug that down. Sew in your tails, and you're finished. So I hope you enjoyed making this shawl as much as I did. I'm waiting for you in that video up there, and stay hooked.